Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel Learn Code with Nav. In this video, I am going to show you end-to-end development of a REST API which will accept n number of CSV file from the request param and process them and save those information into database. I am going to achieve this by using a Spring Batch, a Spring Boot, and obviously JPA, a Spring Data JPA, and MySQL database. So before going further, I want to show you that I have created two tables, one for employees details, other for financial details. Also at the same time I have created one more database table, that is file upload metadata. So basically whenever your REST API start processing, it will contain certain information about those processing. Let me show you this information of this table. So basically file upload metadata will contains file month, file name, and processing starts at what time and processing end at what time. At the same time it will save your file somewhere to the S3 bucket in AWS and generated one URL, and that URL will be saved here. ID will be auto generated. It will start from 1 and it will be incremented by 1 by next time onwards. Status initially it will be pending. Once its processing completed, it will be completed mark here. And if you will look into my employees detail table, then you will found there are certain columns, let's say ID, which is also auto incremented, and primary key in this case, and age of the employee, annual salary, what is the bonus, so on so forth. Similarly we would have financial details table as well. This will contain some information based on month. So ID will be auto generated, this will be primary key in our case, and what happened in April, August, December, Feb, Jan, so on so forth. So let me see my application is started and running. Yes, it is running successfully. Now my this REST API which I have developed using Spring Boot, Spring Batch, Spring Data JPA, and MySQL database, it can process only two files. One is employees data.csv, other is financial.csv. If I will try to process another file, then it will give me this error. Let me check this again. Let me click on send. So this is giving that please provide valid file name. These are the following valid file names. What are those? These are the. So let me go to select files and select financial. As soon as I will say send, before saying send, it will contain around 1000 data, so it will take very less time since I am developing this REST API using a Spring Batch. So let me click on send, let me run this, and you can see here a status is completed, one URL which is generated for S3 bucket, processing start at this time and starts at this time and ends at this time. This is the file name, this is the file name financial.csv which has processed, and for which month it is processed. So it is processed for July 2023. Now if I will look into my employees details table, so I need to look into my financial details table first, since I have processed that file, right? Financial.csv, and this is a file which we have already processed. Now let me go to this table and let me see. Now you can see all the records inserted properly, and it took very less time to process actually, and it contains total 351 data. Okay, now let me go to Postman again. Instead of financial, I want to send employee details. Now I want to process employees detail file, which the name of the file is employee-data. Now let me, it will take some time, so I would so for now this, now you can see second row has been inserted, and this is saying that this file has been processed. Processing start at this time and completed at this time. So you can see it will take around 1.5 seconds. This is the URL generated for file and status is completed. Now if I will look into my employees detail table, which was empty initially, now it will contains 1000 rows based on my CSV file. Now if I will go to my Excel file of employees, then I would say that I would check how many rows it is containing. Let me scroll down at last. It contains 1001 and first row is header. That's why it inserted 1000 rows in my database. So if I would check the count for employees details table, then it would say 1000 rows has been inserted. This is my file upload metadata, right? Now it contains two rows, one related to financial information, financial CSV information, other is for employee data CSV information. Now I have covered lots of validation in my REST API. Let's say I want to process this file has already processed, right? And I want to process again. Then instead of processing again, it will show it will say that this file is already processed and its status is completed in our database. Now you can see same file I try to process again, then it is saying file is already processed and current status is completed. If I will look into my database and see anything inserted, no, because this is the validation I have put it on top of the processing. Before going to process, it will do some processing or validation on my CSV file and check whether it is necessary to process them or that's enough for us. Similarly, if I will try to process again for the same file for financial, which I have already processed, right, this one, and I will try to process again by using my REST API, then it will say file is already processed and current status is complete. Let's say I don't want to send the file, what will happen? File is empty. So I have put lots of validation on top of the processing. If all the validation pass, then only validation then only processing will take place. So this is how my REST API works. Now let me go to my Eclipse and explain you the code which I have written here. So if I will, so this is the code which I have already written. In case if you guys wants that I would explain line by line and write code in front of you and created a separate video for more detailed and description, then you guys can let me know in comment section. If I will get 50 likes and 50 comments in my on this video, then definitely I will create a detailed video on this topic. So I have created my REST controller here, which is nothing but the simple class which is marked as at the rate REST controller. So it will, this simple Java class will act as a REST controller. Here I have created one post mapping of /upload. Post mapping I am using here, and on top of I have created one method. On top of it we have written post mapping. So upload file method will, what it will do, it will pass one request param as a file, and that file will be multipart file. This is my proper logger is here. First thing I am checking whether the file is empty or not. If it is empty, then I would return the response immediately saying file is empty, and I don't do any processing further. If file is not empty, then what I will do is I will extract the file name from the file, and I will log that file name to the logger. If you look into my console, then I can see proper logger as well, right? So this is the flow job, this is the steps, this is executed successfully, this is a case for this one and that one. Okay, now I have created one utility here on top of it. Once I get the file name, I will created one utility where I am saying if file name is valid, then only it will do the processing. If it is not valid, then immediately I will say that this file is not in our list. So for this I have created one method is file name in enum. So basically what this file will do is it will take input as a string, and checking in my enum, I have created one enum as well, file name enum. It will contains two files, one is employee data.csv, other is financial.csv. If file is present in this enum, that is fine, we can go ahead. Otherwise we will immediately return the response by saying file name, this one does not match with the provided enum. If this is fine, then we will say we will check the another validation that will check whether this file already processed or not. If this is already processed, that means one table of mine contains those information, that is file upload metadata. So I am simply querying the database and checking if already processed or not. If this is already processed, then immediately I will say file is already processed and current status I will fetch from the database and simply return to the response. If this is not the case, then I will create one path and transfer the content to the temporary file, and I will call finally service method to process the file. Now this is my service method, right? Process file. Once I got the temporary file as a path and file name which I am getting from the original file name, then for S3 bucket we need to write logic here. In upcoming video series of this one, I would also include this point as well, how to upload S3 file, how to upload file on S3 bucket using Spring Boot. Once I have got the S3 file URL, then I will call initialize file upload metadata. So it will initialize my entity here. So file, I will set file name as file name, S3 URL file as URL file name. Then I'm getting the current time, date and time, and converting that one into month and year format and setting the file month. Created at I will save at the time, and processing starts at now, which is current date and time. And initially I will set as a pending. Okay. So these information I will save into database as the first thing. Once this is done, then I would create a job. So initially for Spring Batch we would need to create few things. So basically this tab will contain processor, reader and writer, and also executor. So processor will process your file, reader will read your file, and writer will write the file to the database, and that step will contain one job. Okay, every job contains multiple step or single step, that is fine. So I have created job parameters. I want to pass some parameters to my job. I am saying that this is a key input file and this is S3 URL file. This is my file that needs to be processed. Now finally I will initialize job execution as null. Now I am using switch statement here, and I am saying based on the file name which we are getting from the postman or from the input, do the processing wisely. Now let's say my file name is employee data.csv. Then I would say that job execution equal to job launcher dot run, where I have created this one. I have created two jobs here in service strategy. Okay, configuration. So this is my employee strategy and this is the final strategy. So if you will look into employee strategy, so what we are doing is we are creating reader for employee data. We are created one more bean for processor for employee, one more bean for writer for employee data, and for all these four thing executor as well, executor, reader, writer and processor. The combination of these four will create one step. Okay, and this is how we can create a step. New step builder, build step name, then the repository for which we are creating this step, and transaction manager. Okay, then we need to call our reader method from which we are getting the reader bean. Then we would call processor for getting the processor bean, and writer method to call writer bean, and then lastly task executor for task executor bean. So task executor bean, we need to create something like this: simple async task executor is equal to new simple task executor, and we need to set the concurrency limit. I will create a detailed video on this concept if you guys wants to me, and for this I would need 50 likes on this video and 50 comments as well. If I will look into my writer part, so this is how we can create a writer for my CSV processing. I need to set repository, I need to set method name, so on so forth. For reader we would need to create line mapper. How do we create line mapper? This is how we can create a line mapper. We need to create a line tokenizer, we need to create a field set mapper, and setting these two to the line mapper. This similarly we have created a strategy for financial CSV as well. We have given the columns name, basically header name from CSV file, and mapping that one to the target type, which is my financial dot class, so on so forth. So this is how I'm getting the input file as reader. So when I'm creating a step, I use one more annotation, that is step scope. So when it is initializing, it won't be created a bean for at runtime, it will create a proxy of it. I will explain you this concept in detail when I will create a detailed video for the same. If I would now finally I have created job for both, one for employee data, one for financial data, and once we need to run this one, then we need to pass job parameters and our job into it. This is how we can call job launcher dot run. Job launcher is a Spring batch. We need to if you will look into here, this is coming from batch spring batch dot core dot launch dot job launcher. We need to auto-wire on top of the class, and we need to call run method and passing the job and job parameter into it. So based on the job execution, if we get the status as completed, that means job executed successfully of employee data. If I'm getting something else, that means failed or stopped for some reason, then what I'm doing is I'm changing the state of metadata. So just I'm mentioning here that processing and at this time and status is completed. If somehow it fails, then I'm simply saying that this is the time that processing ends and current status is failed. Once we are done with changing the state of metadata to completed, then simply I am returning the response from the here and going back to the controller by saying that your file uploaded successfully. This is what we got the message at first level when we are processing the file. If file is empty, then we are getting the file is empty. If file is already processed, then we are getting the validation from the database, whether it is completed or failed, so on so forth. I hope you like this video. This video basically is more about Spring Batch, Spring Data JPA, and Spring Boot using MySQL database. So this is how we can manipulate the data from .csv file using Spring Batch, and this is how you can process millions of records faster than ever. I hope you like this one. If you like this one, please do subscribe and share with your friends. And also, if you want to make this if you want to make the detailed video on this concept or this agenda, then let me know in the comment section. I would need 50 likes, 50 comments for the details video. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.